Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of the Good Friends, Better Enemies podcast. My name's Jay, and I'm joined as well by my partner in crime, the peanut butter to my jelly, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tyrone. Tyrone, how you doing, pal?
Pretty good, all things considering. Little tired. We opened back up here in my part of the province, and I've been back to work, and it has been a weird transition going from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing the Molson Indy pretty quickly right now. You're going right out of the block straight into full throttle. So kudos to you, man. I know it's been a difficult week getting readjusted, and well, tonight, or rather this afternoon, a couple of weeks ago we talked about how much fun it is for us to occasionally do the afternoon podcast. So we're both sitting here on a beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon, and I've got my coffee and had myself a smoothie this morning. And I know that you were back at the grindstone early this morning, but you are looking forward to a day off, and also to talk about our subject this afternoon, which is Tyrone's rebooking of the Elimination Chamber from 2011.
Spoiler alert, Jay is a huge fan of Jerry the King Lawler, always has been, always will be. So I feel like he might get a little heated at me on this episode.
It's important to note before we go forward, I'm just reading some of my notes here on Elimination Chamber 2011. And in Germany, it was actually translated as No Escape. So if you're listening to this from Germany, Berlin, or Hamburg, or wherever you might be listening from, we are covering the WWE No Escape pay-per-view from 2011.
Was that just a translation thing, or was that what it was called?
I don't know if it's maybe just loosely translated into No Escape. I'm just reading the Wikipedia notes, to be honest with you. I just pulled up a couple of extra things so I would have some more cards to draw from. But yeah, it does seem like that is the particular name in Germany. So be actually fun one day to go through and maybe see what all the translations for the pay-per-views would be. That might be a funny little tidbit one day.
Yeah, I feel like there'd be some real weird ones, like Great Balls of Fire would probably translate into something quite funny in different languages.
Yeah, I think so too. Absolutely. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get into the rebooking of the 2011 Elimination Chamber. And it was actually, if I'm not mistaken, the second Elimination Chamber to take place on the road to WrestleMania. Oh, maybe it's not actually. I think actually it might be a little bit further down the line. But this was at a time when the Elimination Chamber was kind of becoming quite prominent in the company. It'd be not too long before this had it become a staple on the road to WrestleMania. A lot of fun. Some chamber events are better than others, and I think both Tyrone, you and I both agree that some of these pay-per-view concepts are a little bit too much. I feel like you lose a little bit of the gravitas of the events when you have, upcoming every year an Elimination Chamber, you have a Hell in the Cell, you have a TLC. So instead of these matches being sprinkled into certain feuds, every year, you're going to be getting those matches at certain times. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer to have the predetermined events, or would you rather just have these sticks sort of fall into rivalries as they go along?
I mean, I like the fact that you're getting at least one of each match once a year, but I would prefer to be surprised a bit more instead of knowing every February we're getting the Chamber, every December we're getting TLC. I believe it's October we get Hell in a Cell. I'd like to see a Hell in a Cell in the summer. I'd like to see an Elimination Chamber at Survivor Series again. Like, I think that would be a lot better than what they're doing right now.
I agree. And also on top of that, you have to book towards these feuds. I mean, we've touched on this a couple of times before, that Bray Wyatt, Seth Rollins Hell in the Cell match, which was their first outing after The Fiend made his debut at SummerSlam in 2019. Maybe not the best way to start a feud, having it in Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cells and cage matches are blow-offs in my mind. So when you start a feud off that way, it really takes away, like, how much further can you really go over a Hell in a Cell? So if you're going to have these tentpole events every year, I really feel as though they need to be booked accordingly, and you have to have these matches make sense in terms of the timeline of the feud. So if you're going to do a TLC, make sure that you've already had 2 matches, whether it be on Raw or SmackDown or pay-per-view or whatever, but the blow-off should be TLC, not the opening salvo, if you get my meaning.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I mean, I feel with the Chamber, it's a little different because you're not going to have all 6 guys or 6 girls in the same feud. It kind of helps set up a bit of a WrestleMania thing going on right now. Like you look at the way the company is right now, we're what, 7 weeks away from Mania, and we don't even know who the hell is in the main events. Like you hear the rumblings, like Edge is challenging for one. Pretty sure it's going to be Roman, which means we have no idea who Drew McIntyre is going against. We don't know what legends are being brought back, if any of the part timers. It's very strange that we're only 7 weeks away and we don't know pretty much anything that's going on for the card.
It is. That's a very, very fair point. We are on the road to WrestleMania, and so far we haven't seen any signs of upcoming towns or rest stops. That's for sure. It just seems like we're going on this endless road, and there's no clear-cut direction in sight as of yet. We talked about this not too long ago, that Vince always seems to pull a rabbit of his hat every year for WrestleMania. So I haven't lost hope, but it definitely is one of the more vague WrestleMania builds that I can remember. And again, to your point about Elimination Chamber as well, I think you're absolutely right. It's a great device to help create intrigue into matches going on into WrestleMania. I just feel like some years it's much better than others. I mean, that's fair of any pay-per-view or any WrestleMania, really. But as far as the Chamber goes, I do like it. I think it's well placed on the road to WrestleMania. But I also don't feel like we need to have it necessarily every year. To your point, I think maybe more of a surprise sometimes might be. Like, what if we did a Money in the Bank in February, and then somebody wins the briefcase and you don't know whether or not they're going to cash in at WrestleMania? That might be fun too.
I mean, that being said, we don't know if somebody could cash in at Mania this year either. I mean, Miz has been doing all the teasing. They pulled him out of the Chamber match. I don't know what's going to happen there, to be honest with you. Like, he's going to cash in. I see him winning. I see them putting the title on him one more time. I just don't know what show he's going to be on, if he's going to do it at Mania, if he's going to do it the Raw after. They always try to have that big surprise for the Monday Night Raw after, and that could be it again.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And just before we wrap up this conversation on the current product, just briefly, and we get into our moments in this week in history. So there's talk of having a crowd at WrestleMania this year. I guess it was maybe something around the same numbers as the Super Bowl, around 35,000 or something to that effect. I'm not sure 100%. They haven't announced anything yet. But I'm wondering, Tyrone, in your mind, do you see them then after WrestleMania, like that Monday Night Raw after Mania? Will we have fans in attendance for that? Will they run the Raymond James Stadium for the Raw the next night and just reconfigure it? Like, where do you see that sort of landing in your mind?
I guess that really depends on how much longer they can stay at Tropicana for, because baseball season's right around the corner. Spring training has started already. So they're going to have to be out of there as soon as Tampa opens their regular season. So I don't know if they're going to do Raymond James Stadium for Raw, if they're going to go back to the Performance Center, if they're going to go on the road even. Like, I guess in March, that's when baseball season starts, end of March, early April. By then, hockey and basketball are kind of winding down, but it's also that weird time where all major sports are going on except football. So the only option they would have really would be running football stadiums.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just smaller buildings that aren't necessarily involved with the NHL or NBA. I mean, they do have maybe 10,000 seat arenas in Florida that aren't being used for those types of sports. So that's certainly possible. I don't know.
No, and I get that, but I feel like they would be more inclined to run the football stadiums and do a smaller capacity. Because if you're in an 8 to 10,000 seat arena and you can only fit 1,500 or so fans in there, versus a 75,000 arena where you can fit 10,000 people in there, I think they're going for that instead.
No, you're right. I think that's a very fair point. And I just watched AEW this past Wednesday, and I have to say that I find that even though it's a lot of talent, actually it's all talent around ringside causing noise and making ruckus, I find it adds a lot to the product as opposed to the the mic'd in crowd noises and things of that nature that WWE is doing. I understand why they're doing it. Obviously, want everybody to be safe, but I did find that my viewing experience was a little bit more enhanced with having some actual voices in the audience and stuff like that. So, but anyhow, from there, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go directly into our This Week in Wrestling History, and we've got a couple of really great ones this week. Tyrone, what do you have for me, pal?
I got a Saturday night's main event from February of '89, where you had Hogan and Savage in the main event with what turned out to be Buster Douglas as the referee. Now, originally, this was supposed to be Mike Tyson because they thought Tyson was going to beat Douglas, and it was a sure thing. Surprise, surprise, Buster Douglas knocks out Mike Tyson. He becomes the guest referee in the match. It was weird because obviously Iron Mike was a much more popular name. He had the household recognition. Not a lot of people really knew Buster Douglas unless you were a big boxing fan, whereas you didn't have to be a boxing fan to know who Mike Tyson was. So they kind of ran a risk here. Maybe it paid off. I don't really see it as it did, but that's what I got.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I do remember hearing the story about when Tyson was knocked out, and then he had pulled out. And I think it was actually Bruce Pritchard who talked about how they had already done all of their wraparounds and all of their television coverage and had everything in the can to be distributed in the different markets. And they had to go back in on Saturday morning, first thing, to re-edit everything because Tyson had lost. And then Tyson pulled out of the event. So actually, one of the WWF officials, I believe it was Basil DeVito, I could be wrong, actually went to Buffalo, New York, where Buster Douglas's camp had landed on a flight from Japan, and they signed the deal memo right then and there. And then before you know it, you have Buster Douglas as the special guest referee. So it was kind of neat how they so quickly kind of put everything together. And I guess in a way, kind of like you have to make chicken salad, because of the situation being what it was. Obviously, Tyson was the bigger name, but having the world heavyweight boxing champion on their television is a notch as well. So
The other thing I found weird about this whole situation was you were giving away your WrestleMania main event on free TV 1 month before WrestleMania. That whole thing was very strange to me.
you know what? I have to be honest with you. I've never really thought about that before. That's a really, really good point. That never crossed my mind. I don't think it's necessarily unprecedented. I mean, at this time it was. I think during the Attitude Era and things of that nature, you would sometimes see those big matches take place a month or two before the actual big pay-per-view, the big WrestleMania main event. But to your point, and this time in '89, that was huge. I've never thought about that, actually. That's a really, really good point.
Yeah, every now and then I make them. I'm smarter than your average bear from time to time.
No, I'm not saying that to say that you're not typically intelligent. I can't believe that I never thought of something so obvious. I think sometimes with these wrestling podcasts that we do, you and I, there's so many things to consider and so much going on that I feel as though sometimes we just get our paths crossed in terms of the timeline. Sometimes I screw up the years. I just have a hard time doing it.
That's totally fair, man. I mean, I don't know for the most part what happened between 2010 and 2018. I know that the matches happened, but I couldn't tell you what year they took place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just wondering right now as we're talking about this. I think actually, it was actually 1990 and not 1989.
Well, then never mind. We just proved our point. We don't know the years anymore. So
Yeah, so we just spent all kinds of time dissecting it. Sorry about that, folks. That was my bad. I think I wrote down the wrong year on our notes. My sincere apologies for that. But
well, why don't you give us something that happened in history with a proper year right now?
Okay, sounds good. We'll do that. So, my particular event or moment that I want to talk about is Shane McMahon's return. It was 5 years ago. This actually today, on Monday, February 22nd. We have Shane McMahon returning out of the clear blue sky. He had been gone for about 7 years, and it was the night where they were going to award the Vincent James McMahon Award for Excellence. Vince is in the ring. Of course, Stephanie comes out to accept, and then suddenly you hear Shane McMahon's music hit, and I legitimately popped. I remember watching this. I think I actually even texted you, and I was like, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. It was one of the most well-kept secrets in the history of surprises in the last 10 years or 12 years, I would say. Like, I had no idea Shane was coming back. I don't think anybody else did either. And I legitimately popped so hard for that. I thought it was just the coolest return. What did you think?
Oh, I agree completely. I vividly remember being on my couch watching Raw live, which we don't really do at all. But I had the day off work. My wife was still at work, so I was like, screw it. I'm going to watch it. And I was watching that whole stupid Excellence Award thing happening with Stephanie McMahon getting it. And then as soon as I heard that music, my head just turned up. I was like, there's no fucking way. And then sure enough, here he comes, shimmying out, Shane O'Mac. Now, the issue I have with this return and this storyline, though, was there was supposed to be that lockbox or that safe box that there was information in and everything like that. We never really got closure on that whatsoever. It just kind of faded away.
No, it did. Absolutely. I think well, no, we did get in the night after WrestleMania. They came and said that because Shane had to destroy the lockbox if Undertaker won the match. And then so the night after when he made Shane the acting GM, Shane had conceded that he had destroyed the lockbox and its contents and all that kind of thing. So they did kind of blow it off. It was
but we never found out what was in it. Like, none of us to this day know what was in that lockbox. It's like something I mentioned, I believe, last week. We still don't know who hiked the briefcase up in the ladder match with Austin and the McMahons. Just another one of those we'll never know moments.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it was kind of lost on the crowd there, and it was lost on everybody. But by the time we got to WrestleMania and got past the match, I feel as though it really didn't matter anymore. It was kind of a secondary thought. But to your point, I mean, you do wish that these things would be blown off a little bit better, and sometimes you're kind of wishing for some more clear explanation as to what happened, right?
Or at least something, just more than, yeah, it's done. Like, give us something. That's all we ever want.
Yes, 100%. I completely agree. Do you have any more moments this week, my friends?
No, man, that was all I got this week. Sorry, it's been a little crazy of a week. I didn't get a chance to research too much on that one.
No, it's completely fine. And I do want to clarify, ladies and gentlemen, that was 100% my bad. It was February 23rd, 1990 that Hogan and Savage had their rematch, and that was with Buster Douglas as the referee. I completely screwed that up. My sincere apologies. So they didn't, in fact, have that match a few months before WrestleMania 5. It was a few months before WrestleMania 6, which in a lot of people's minds should have been the rematch anyway. So my sincere apologies for that, and my apologies to you, Tyrone. I made a little boo-boo there, but all's good. I think most of our points still hold up.
Yeah, if you're going to hold us to the fact that we screwed up the year, then I got 2 words for you.
Click subscribe.
Fuck off.
Okay. I'll let you hold on to that one. All right. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we are steamrolling our way into the Elimination Chamber. 2011. Now, this took place on February 20th, 2011 in Oakland, California at the Oracle Arena. The attendance was 11,500 with a buy rate of 212,000. So it wasn't a bad buy rate. It was lower than the years previous, but it was still doing quite well. This was a fun year for me in wrestling, 2011. I enjoyed it. I don't know about you, Tyrone, how much you look back fondly at 2011. I thought there was some really, really great stuff being done, specifically in the summertime when we had that CM Punk and John Cena angle going on. That was just riveting stuff. One of my favorite angles of the last 10 or 15 years was that summer of CM Punk going back and forth. Then, of course, as we're heading towards WrestleMania this year, we've just had the return of The Rock. He's come back and is going to be the host of WrestleMania 27 and be involved with the main event as well. Now, with that being said, we also have to touch on the fact that there were some other legends that were returning. We were just looking at a new iteration of Tough Enough, which was going to have the lead judge be Stone Cold Steve Austin along with Booker T and Trish Stratus.
Hey,
So that
hey,
was a
hey, 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 stop, because this all comes into play later. Let's not bother with Tough Enough. It comes into play later, okay?
okay, no problem at all. I just wanted to let people know what was going on in the company at the time. So The Miz is your WWF champion going into this event, and he has some pretty fun interactions with Jerry the King Lawler along the way. But with that being said, I don't want to get too far off into the weeds on this because I know you're rebooking. So why don't we get started here, pal? What do you got for me?
So I'm going to make a commentary change on this one to start us off.
Okay.
And that is, I personally think that Josh Matthews is one of the worst, if not the worst commentator ever. So I am putting Matt Stryker in for him. I think Stryker was a much better analyst, knew where to make a joke here and there, when to be serious, whereas Josh Matthews was just like listening to paint dry to me. I couldn't deal with it, so I took him off. And also, I want to stress that in my fantasy world of this one, there is no Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler feud because I could not deal with heel Cole. I almost had to mute the commentary during most of it, so that just doesn't exist right now.
That's totally fine. I get that 100%. I had a feeling you're going to go down that road. And as far as swapping out Stryker, I completely agree. And I think that Stryker was actually very underrated as a commentator. And I think if he had been doing the same style that he was doing back at this time today, he'd be touted as one of the best commentators in WWE. I mean, I know he's still doing commentary, but obviously not on the big national scale that he would have the exposure with WWE. So I definitely think he was a bit ahead of his time in terms of the way he approached commentary. I really enjoy his work.
Actually, funnily enough, he just replaced Josh Matthews as the lead commentator for Impact. So it's kind of life imitating art there.
Yeah, exactly. You certainly nailed that one. So our opening contest is it's actually a dark match. Did you cover the dark matches, buddy?
Negative.
Okay, so just for everybody's information, the dark match on the actual card was Daniel Bryan defeating Ted DiBiase for the and he retained his United States Championship. I'm not sure if either one of those guys are going to be on your card, but the opening contest of the pay-per-view was Alberto Del Rio with Ricardo Rodriguez defeating Kofi Kingston by submission. What do you got for me, pal?
So I kept this match, actually. I didn't hate it. I thought it was decent. I think they're both fantastic workers. But what I did was I put the Intercontinental title on the line. And I had Alberto Del Rio defeat Kofi Kingston for the IC title to kind of set up a title for title feud going into Mania.
Okay. I don't mind that. A little
I like I've always liked the title for title winner take all type situations. I think it puts a little bit more meaning into the matches. So you have the workhorse title that we all know it as the Intercontinental Championship going up against a World Championship. So if you have both of them, to me, not only are you the top guy, but it means that you are a fantastic worker. And we know we're going to get Del Rio versus Edge at Mania. Both of them are great workers, so I could see either of them being a double champion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you on that. A little bizarre in reality that they wouldn't have had. I guess because they were trying to put the rocket ship onto Del Rio, why have him face Kingston in a non-title match? I think is kind of like you could have him go up against somebody else and still get a really, really good win. But to your point, I do agree. That would have been a great match, and to have him go in as the IC champ, yeah, would have added some fuel to the fire for sure. Because I do feel as though, if memory serves, the match with Edge and Del Rio wasn't the hottest going into WrestleMania. I mean, it opened the show, which doesn't really make a difference. Sometimes the opening matches are as important as the closing matches in terms of getting the crowd involved and setting the pace and the tone. But I definitely don't remember being super hyped about Del Rio versus Edge.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. They were definitely trying to make Del Rio something that he wasn't, and that was a star. At this point, he wasn't a star yet. He had just won the 40-man Royal Rumble. He was the what was his, like, how do I word this? He was the Mexican aristocrat, I think is the best way to define
Yeah.
his character. And it worked out really well. He was kind of like a JBL-esque thing. I loved the character. It's really, really, really unfortunate that he has a lot of personal issues now, and he's, I think, facing jail time due to it, but we won't touch on that. We'll look back at Alberto Del Rio from 10 years ago when he was a great in-ring worker and should have been a champion at this point, I think, whether it be the secondary title or not, that I have him winning.
No, I agree with that. And I personally think he was over here to an extent, but I think they were pushing him a little too hard. I think that he was at his most over when he returned at that Hell in the Cell pay-per-view in 2015 and was the surprise against John Cena in the U.S. Championship Open Challenge. That's when I think Alberto was at the height of his popularity or being over. And then after that, they formed the League of Nations, and it didn't really go anywhere, and he was gone fairly quickly after that again. But to your point, I think that
it was also very strange that it was friggin' Dutch Mantel who brought him out. Like, yeah, when I think Alberto Del Rio, put him with Zeb Coulter. That makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I just I do think that sometimes it's an issue that's been going on, particularly in the last 10 or 15 years, that sometimes we get people that are very talented, but for whatever reason, they push them way too hard and the audience just sours on them, whether they are great workers or not. Sometimes fans just don't buy into it. And it's not like how it used to be 20 years ago where we would push somebody. A lot of times we would buy into that hype. Maybe it's because we were both younger, but I don't know. I just have a harder time getting behind guys that are pushed super hard now.
I find myself almost rooting for the guys that aren't being pushed at all, like a Tyler Breeze or I don't know. Help me out here.
Drew Gulak.
Drew Gulak, perfect example. Somebody like a Drew Gulak, or even like I've spoken about him before, August Gray on 205 Live. I think that gimmick is fantastic. I think his in-ring is great. I think 205 Live is one of the best shows on TV, wrestling-wise, but it doesn't get the love it needs.
Yeah, because it's you and 12 other people that watch it. I think that's the problem. I mean, I love it too.
There's at least 205 of us that watch it.
That's why it's called 205. It's not to do with the weight class. It's to do with the viewership numbers.
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, if Raw keeps up the same pace it's on right now, it should be called 205 Live soon too as well. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, do you have anything else to touch on with that particular one?
No, not really. I mean, Del Rio going into Mania as a champ, going for the double champ. That's where I sat.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most memorable WrestleMania main events of all time was, Hogan and Warrior, which was the champion versus champion title for title thing. So, yeah, there's a lot of history with the title for title stuff. So I can definitely see you going into Mania with that particular program. Now, going forward in this event, the next up match we had was the Elimination Chamber for the World Heavyweight Championship. We had Edge defending against Rey Mysterio, Kane, Drew McIntyre, Big Show, and Wade Barrett. I'm assuming this has been changed. What do you have for me, buddy?
I have the Raw Elimination Chamber coming up next.
Okay.
So I believe that is... so we have Sheamus, CM Punk, John Morrison, Randy Orton, John Cena, and I've taken out R-Truth and replaced him with Daniel Bryan.
Okay. All right. So Daniel Bryan, I'm assuming then in your world, the dark match didn't take place, and Daniel Bryan is just doing one match here tonight.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, I don't hate this. I think it's a good. I like it. It's a good substitution. We all knew that R-Truth probably wasn't going to be going too far in this match based on his positioning at the time. So what do you have for me in this match? How does it go down?
So I've got Daniel Bryan and CM Punk starting it off, because if there were two guys that were going to go the entire mile, we know it's the two of them. Everybody has seen them work, whether it be in WWE, on the indies, like these two can go. So they started off 5 minutes of just pure wrestling. It's wonderful. Sheamus enters next, followed by John Morrison, Randy Orton, and John Cena. That's the order that they all come out. The order of elimination, I have John Morrison going out first, because I always believe that he was kind of the, other than R-Truth, who was in the original one, he was the most non-believable to be going in and winning the number one contendership. So I have Morrison out. Then I have Daniel Bryan getting eliminated right away by Sheamus. I have Sheamus taking them both out. And then I have Randy Orton coming in and taking out CM Punk. Sorry, I have CM Punk taking out Randy Orton right away. Orton's in and out real quick, helping to set up their WrestleMania feud as well. Then Sheamus eliminates CM Punk, and then Cena wins it by last eliminating Sheamus.
Okay. Yeah, and sort of call back to their feud that they had been had going back and forth for the better part of a year and a half. I believe Sheamus beat John Cena in a tables match at TLC 2009 to win the title. So there is some history there. I think there's a little bit of history with a lot of these different guys. So yeah, I like that booking. I mean, I think at this time, Cena was the logical choice to go over, obviously, and face whomever the champion is at WrestleMania. I guess you could make an argument for Randy Orton and also CM Punk, but I think that at this time it was clearly going to be Cena that was going to be main eventing. So no, I like this. I think it's good.
Well, and you have Punk and Orton who were doing really good things. They were doing a feud. It did lead to a Mania match. I thought the mic work on that one was fantastic. And I believe at Mania 27, you also had Sheamus and Daniel Bryan for the U.S. title. So it kind of ties almost all of these guys in, other than John Morrison, who was just there to be the spot monkey.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And he was sort of a casualty in the whole thing. So, that makes sense. I will definitely, I'll definitely not argue with that one. I think that's a great choice. So good on you, pal. Do you have anything else to add for the next?
No, man, I'm ready to move on.
All right, buddy. Well, the next one we have is on the card is actually the Core, Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel, with Ezekiel Jackson defeating Santino Marella and Vladimir Kozlov for the tag team championships. I'm assuming this one has changed. What do you got for me?
Well, we still have a tag team championship match.
Okay.
But I inserted Crime Time into it and made it a triple threat tag match. And I had Crime Time win the titles. I think that it was a travesty that they never held them. The gimmick was ridiculous. It was stereotypical. It was horrible. It was racist. But it was also really over to a degree. Like when they had Crime Time paired with Cena for a while and they were the CTC, it was crazy how over it all was. Like Crime Time should have held the title at least once in my eyes, so I gave it to them.
Yeah, I can't argue with you. And to be honest with you, I didn't remember that they hadn't held the titles. They absolutely should have. I completely agree with that. I feel like they had the great gimmick for it. I'm just thinking right now that, if we could fantasy book, imagine like a trip or a 6-man tag with Eddie Guerrero and Crime Time, because they both kind of had that sneaky way about them. It might have been a lot of fun to see how they came up with spots, the three of them together. But anyhow,
that would have been great. The one thing that while watching this match, the one thing that I don't even know if I knew, like it clearly was a thing, is that Tamina was paired up with Santino Marella at some point for a manager. That I had no memory of whatsoever. It really makes no sense at all either. But yeah, apparently Tamina and Santino were a thing.
Yeah, they were. I mean, Santino had a lot of interaction with the female talent. I mean, he was with Beth Phoenix and Maria Kanellis as well. So he had been having a lot of different valets and managers throughout his career. So yeah, I was kind of like taken aback by that as well. But we've discussed this plenty of times before that. Well, we just said it a few minutes ago that I think for both of us, after around like 2009-ish, a lot of the lower card angles start to really blend together for me. There's not a lot that really jumps off the page that I remember very, very clearly, other than main event angles and maybe like big events like a WrestleMania or SummerSlam. But yeah, it's hard for me to remember all these different groups and
even WrestleManias lately. Like I know that, like prime example, I know that Triple H and Sting had a match. I have no idea what Mania that happened. I know it was the play button one, but I think that was 31, but I don't fully know.
Yeah, it was the play button one. I'm sorry. I love it. As long as I guess some of it might have been a fast forward button for both of us, but it was no that yeah that was 31. Actually, I came over to your house to see that. We watched it on a Monday after.
Right. We watched it the day after, and we just sat there and ate cream cheese stuffed jalapenos the entire time.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was a lineup for the WC about halfway through the event. But no, it was a. I do remember that vividly because neither one of us had a chance to see it. I think that you might have read some spoilers, and you just told me that you won't believe what happens during the Sting match, and I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I was so excited because of the guys that were involved. And then, sure enough, that was one of the cooler moments in the last few years of WrestleMania when we had the NWO versus DX. I mean, I know it was a little bit too late, but it was still that was a cool moment.
Yeah, I guess I just my issue. I know that we're getting a little off topic here, but my issue with that was Sting was never aligned with the black and white NWO, so that was just ridiculous to me that they were the ones coming out to save him.
Yeah, I was almost thinking like let's get the Horsemen out here or something, but that would have probably been even slower than the NWO walking to the ring. So I digress. But yeah, so getting back onto the topic at hand, I do agree with you that the triple threat would have been a lot of fun, and obviously giving the Crime Time the nod for the tag team titles makes a lot of sense. So I'm really not arguing with you a whole lot on this pay-per-view. I think so far you've booked a really solid show.
Yeah, here's where it's gonna get off the rails for you, I think. But before we touch on the next match, we had that stupid segment up next with Booker T and Trish Stratus talking about Tough Enough that I
Yeah.
feel like really did not need to be on this pay-per-view at all. It was just shameless plugging that could have been done on Monday Night Raw or something that people weren't spending back in 2011, probably what, 45, $50 for this pay-per-view.
Yeah. I know I did.
So I have the segment still happening, but I have Vicky Guerrero coming out during it and kind of getting involved to help set up that wonderful WrestleMania match that was Vicky Guerrero and or not, no, it was Lay Cool and Dolph Ziggler versus Snooki, Trish, and
John Morrison.
John Morrison. But Vicky was involved in that as much as I remember because her and Lay Cool were kind of in a weird thing. So it sets up that whole storyline. It
Why?
still serves. What's that?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's at least there's a purpose to this promo being there now.
I was just going to say that I think that I'm assuming at some point you and I will probably go back and rebook WrestleMania 27. I think it's fair to say that both of us are, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm assuming that if either one of us
It's gone. It's absolutely gone.
Yes,
Snooki shouldn't have been there. It was absolute garbage. But yes, it's gone. But
I mean,
while this promo's
give me Trish Stratus versus Michelle McCool instead or something, right?
that would have been fantastic. But while Vicky Guerrero the promo's still going on, Booker T and Trish leave. They've had enough of her shit. She's now ranting and raving about Dolph Ziggler being fired and calling it a travesty, yada, yada, yada. Out comes Teddy Long. They finally talk. Teddy Long says that Dolph Ziggler can have his job back if he goes one-on-one with the next man. The entire crowd just starts chanting for Undertaker. Because we all know Teddy Long and the Undertaker.
Yeah.
It's not the Undertaker. It is Dolph Ziggler. This is my bonus match, by the way. It is Dolph Ziggler going one-on-one with Christian.
Oh, okay. I like that a lot.
With the stipulation that if Dolph wins, he is rehired. Christian's out there. They're both in great shape. They have a fantastic match, but I give this the bit of a schmoz finish to a double countout. So Dolph is still fired, still continues that storyline to kind of get him. Where's he going to go now? Who's he going to go with? Is he going to go to Raw maybe? There's still all the what ifs. So it's a double countout, but both guys look really strong doing it.
Well, I have to say, a few things go through my mind when you're setting up this angle for me. The first one being, I was waiting for Teddy Long to announce a tag team match because that's his shtick. He always announces tag team matches. The other thing I'm wondering in my head before you reveal who's coming out is, does Vicky stand there berating everybody and their mothers about the fact that Dolph Ziggler's been fired, and then the glass smashes and Austin stuns Vicky. I don't know. That's something that popped in my head too. But I like your booking a lot. I think that would have been a really, really solid match in 2011 to see Christian versus Dolph would have been a really, really good match. And we did see it. I mean, it's not like it never happened, but that's definitely would have utilized both guys on the card, and we would have got a really high-spirited contest on that event for sure.
And who knows? Who knows? In 2021, we could very well see that again now that Christian's back.
Yes, I'm very excited. I think he's probably got a few matches in him. I don't think the Rumble was it. We talked, and I'm going to sidebar here again with you for a second, just because we're talking about Christian. I understand that Edge is going to be going up against the champion at Mania, but do you not want to see maybe a small run with Edge and Christian as a tag team once more before it's all said and done? Wouldn't you like to see a couple matches there, or are you not interested?
I'm really not interested, but I'm also not opposed to it, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not the Christian Mark that you are. We've had this conversation before. I don't really care. Like, I always thought that Edge was the star on the team. Christian was just kind of like the annoying little brother that was there, which I know was kind of what he was playing at one point. But when you realize that the two guys are actually the same age and best friends and not related at all, I still look at Edge as the mature, can handle his own, but can still be juvenile when need to be, whereas Christian's just a juvenile, creepy, annoying little brother who, if he doesn't get his way, throws every fit that he can to get whatever he needs to.
Yeah, no, I understand that because he was booked like that for a long time. But I felt like when he came back from TNA, I think it was 2009, when he came back from TNA and he was back on the WWE roster, I felt like he had really come into his own. And I definitely didn't get that feeling that he was, I guess without you saying it, kind of saying that he was riding coattails to an extent. I felt like he was definitely a man unto himself by the time he came back. And I didn't get that impression much.
I look at him as like the Devon Dudley of the Dudleys. Like, Bubba Ray was the star and Devon was the other act. Or, like, you could say it with pretty much any team. Obviously, Sean and Marty. The Hardys are one of the only exceptions because they both had very, very successful careers, all in different federations. They've been world champions. You have the Broken Matt that completely saved his career and brought him back. So they're one of the only exceptions that I think both members have been equally successful.
They're actually interesting in that way. I don't know, we're getting off topic here, folks. We'll get back to the rebooking in 1 second, but they're actually interesting in that way that if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have said 100% Jeff was the bigger star. But now in 2021, I feel like it's the exact opposite.
Big Money Matt is the one that you got to watch now, whereas Jeff's almost just become the jobber to the stars.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he still has enough credibility that he's still a marquee name and he's always going to have a certain place on the roster. But no, he's at the putting over young talent portion of his career. If he was an actor, he'd be playing a judge on Law and Order right now.
Yes, or the creepy stepdad or something like that in something else.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to touch that one. All right. So now that we're back to Tyrone's reality, I believe that next up on tap, if I'm not mistaken, is the WWF Championship match, or WWE Championship match, rather. That would be The Miz defeating Jerry the King, or defending against Jerry the King Lawler. I'm assuming this match hasn't stayed. It's going to be a shame if it hasn't, but please enlighten me.
So next up, we have The Miz defending the WWE Championship against Jerry the King Lawler. The match stays.
Thank you very much. I know I'm going to hate how you booked this probably, but let's see.
So let's be honest here. Nobody in their right minds thought that 61-year-old Jerry Lawler was winning the title and going to WrestleMania as the champ. You probably had a lot of hope that it would happen, but you didn't believe it would happen, correct?
I'll be honest with you. When I rewatched the events this past week, it brought me back to watching it when it was live. And it was one of those times in my wrestling fandom where I didn't think it was going to happen, but they had done a good enough job building the match, and they had done a really good job during the match, that I honestly thought that there was a chance they were going to swerve us and give him the title for a night or something like that, and then have it put back on Miz on Raw or something. I did honestly believe for a couple of moments that it was going to happen, and that's a testament to the booking, because we all know in our right mind, as you said, that it wasn't going to. But it wasn't really hope. It was just that they had done such a good job with the angle. I felt like this might actually happen. That's where I was.
Well, in this rebooking, it's going to be clear that it doesn't happen, because I looked at the Miz's title reign. It wasn't the greatest title reign. There were very, very few clean victories that he had. A lot of his wins came from either interference from Alex Riley or cheating. Like, he didn't have a lot of clean wins. So I took this match as the Miz having a squash match over Jerry Lawler to make him look like a dominant champion. He literally just beats Jerry Lawler to a bloody pulp repeatedly and pins him clean with the skull-crushing finale in the ring. It goes about 6-7 minutes. Lawler gets no offense in. He's just that broken down old man. Thought he could do it. Miz dominates him. Makes people hate Miz even more because he is beating up the beloved Jerry Lawler within an inch of his life. Gets the heat on him going into Mania. You can do something with Lawler going into Mania, because again, I said the Michael Cole thing doesn't exist, whether Lawler becomes a referee or has a match or something. That's what I have going down. A Miz dominant victory.
So you could maybe do like Lawler versus A-Rai or something at Mania. That might make sense. But
yeah, you could do that. But yeah, that, like, I know you're probably going to hate on this, but that's why I completely laid out that you had to make Miz look dominant going into Mania as the champ.
I actually don't hate it. I think it makes a lot of sense. My only issue with it, I guess, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence about it, only because you just clearly laid out that Miz's title run was not overly productive, in that sense that he was getting a lot of clouded wins, like getting help from Alex Riley and all this kind of stuff. So I guess the only question I have for you is, do you think it makes Miz look stronger or weaker that the only guy that he could beat convincingly would be the 61-year-old Jerry Lawler? I mean, he can't
I think
his own age.
No, and I think that in his own mind it makes him look stronger, which makes him even more hated.
Yeah,
I think like he clearly can't beat a John Cena or a Rock or a Sheamus or something like that in a one-on-one, no interference, clean victory. But yet you put him in the ring with an almost senior citizen, and he's going to beat them to a bloody pulp, and he's going to brag about it. He's going to be that guy that's like, I defeated a Hall of Famer. I can say this. I can do that. And people are going to hate him for it.
Yeah, I think I don't hate the booking. Actually, I think it does make sense. The only thing I would change, if it was me, is I would put in a hope spot. I would put in a spot where it looks like Lawler's making a comeback, and maybe at a certain point he does get the upper hand for a couple minutes. I think that, I don't know, just a complete burial and a complete squash. I don't know. I think you might need to have some kind of a hope spot in there, but other than that, I think it's a good choice. I do like it, and then you can build on that going forward in many different directions as well.
Yeah, and even on commentator, we have Michael Cole being sympathetic because it's his broadcast partner. He's upset that the Miz is just doing this to him. You have Booker T wanting to get in the ring, but he doesn't because it's a wrestling match. He's not going to go in and do what Alex Riley does for the Miz and save Lawler. He's going to keep it fair and let it happen.
Yeah, and also, like having Booker T go out there, then if he goes and breaks it up, then you're setting up for a Booker T and Miz match. I mean, I guess you could do it the next night on Raw or something, and then have Miz do the same thing to Booker T, and then that puts even more heat on him. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I get your point. Sometimes I wonder when you have these guys just get destroyed in the ring, like, do they have no friends in the back? But then, of course, you have to think about the logical booking of it. So, no, I don't hate it. I think it makes sense to have Miz go over strong. and to have him laying in a pool of his own blood, the proverbial crimson mask, I can buy that. As I said, if it was me, I'm obviously, you're booking it differently than I am, but if it was me, I probably would have had Lawler have some sort of a spot to get the upper hand just for a minute, just to keep it maybe a little bit more competitive. But I understand why you booked it the way you do, and I'm fine with it.
I'm shocked. I thought you were going to hate on this, but you're full of surprises for me today, babe. I love it.
No, yeah, like what's not to? I mean, I definitely think that the Miz should have been booked more strongly going into Mania. I think as much as I loved the Jerry Lawler angle as it happened, and it's one of my more fond memories of 2011. I really enjoyed that angle. I don't know that if you're going to Cena versus Miz at Mania, that having a feud with Jerry Lawler the month previous is going to get you hot enough. I mean, let's face it, the Miz himself at this time was lost in the shuffle. Sure, he was champion, but there were so many other guys that were so super over at this time on the card, a Randy Orton, a John Cena, that his title reign in history is almost an afterthought. So I think that the Miz, it was the right time for the Miz to get the championship. He had a lot of momentum built up over the previous few years, but I also think that they never really fully committed to him. And had they committed to him and had him hold the title a little longer, I could have definitely seen a heel Miz hold the title for a year. That's me at that time. I don't buy the Miz as the WWE champion now.
Well, I was just going to say we could get that year-long heel run now, especially if they break him apart from Morrison and just have him become that arrogant, cocky heel that we know and love him to be. I think he could have a very, very successful second title run.
I understand where you're coming from. I don't buy it anymore. I think there's been too much of the Mr. and Mrs. whatever it is, Mrs. or the E network stuff. Just too many reality show spots, his Miz TV stuff. He's just been a goof for too long for me now. If they book it correctly, and prove me wrong, WWE, I could be wrong. You could make him a smart.
If you're going to base it, but if you're just going to base it off of reality TV, look at Daniel Bryan. He was and still is all over Total Divas, Total Bellas, all that. And then he had one of the greatest title runs ever a couple of years ago with the Captain Planet type thing.
Yeah,
him as a heel there, like they completely reinvented him. He was still doing the reality TV. He had come off of the Yes movement. He had done everything he could as a white meat babyface, and then they turned him into the cocky, arrogant, thinking he's doing everything right. Why is everybody hating him? Heel. And it was beautiful. They could do something similar to The Miz, and it would be great.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, they could. I don't have a lot of faith that they will. I'll just be honest with you. I mean, the way that they aren't really batting 1,000 right now with booking, and I could definitely see them making the attempt. And hey, like I said, prove me wrong. WWE, prove me wrong. Maybe I'm just too short-sighted here, but I just feel like there's been too much, to coin a phrase from Pat Patterson, too much gaga with the Miz over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I just don't buy him as the face of the company anymore. He's just too far gone for me, and maybe I'm just being too short-sighted, but I think the closest they might have come to him being back in that level was when he did that mixed tag with his wife against Cena and Nikki. I thought that was some really good stuff, the promos going into it. And that was about as close as I got to buying into Miz again as a main eventer, because his promos were really solid. So if they go back down that vein and have him cut some really serious promos, I might be able to buy into it. But as of right now, I'm not interested.
Well, did you watch this past week's Raw or no?
I haven't had a chance. I watched SmackDown, but I haven't had a chance to watch Raw yet.
So Miz cut a hell of a promo this past week on Raw, and it brought me back to that old school what he was with the heel. Like Miz on the microphone, if they let him go, is magic.
He's very good.
Like he is so underrated. He doesn't get hurt. He doesn't hurt people. He can talk. He can wrestle. He's got everything. Like he really is, I would say, top 3 on the entire roster right now of guys that they can especially count on right now.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, I remember back when I used to subscribe to the Wrestling Observer, I remember reading and hearing about Dave Meltzer talk about how Miz was a good worker, but he works the WWE soft style. And in my mind, I'm like, how is that a criticism? Because to me, if the guys working house shows back when they were on the road, working house shows every week plus TV matches and everything else, like, are you gonna go 1,000% working a house show match? I mean, you want to preserve your career, and to your point, you don't have to work Japanese strong style when you're when you're running the loop week in and week out. So I do agree with you. He's a good worker. He doesn't injure people and he's consistent. So let's see what they do with him. Hopefully I'm wrong. I really do, because I do like the Miz, and I think that his ability, if given the opportunity to be a heel, is tremendous. So let's just see where they go with him. I hope you're right.
Yeah, no more babyface Miz against heel Shane McMahon nonsense. That was just a low ball for him.
There's just some guys I don't buy as faces, and some guys I don't buy as heels. And I don't buy the Miz as a face. I never have. There's certain guys like Hogan who can do both really, really well. But I definitely don't buy Miz as a face at all.
No, I totally agree with you. But I'm done talking about the Miz. We have one more match left on this card. Should we get to it?
Absolutely. So you've switched, and now the main event for the pay-per-view is the SmackDown Elimination Chamber, which...
Yep, because the title goes last, bud. Title goes last.
Absolutely. I get you. You get Edge going up against Rey Mysterio, Kane, Drew McIntyre, Big Show, and Wade Barrett. What do you have for me on this one, my friend?
So I have one substitution, and that is I took out the Big Show. He wasn't originally supposed to be in it. It was originally supposed to be Dolph Ziggler. Then they did that whole storyline. Show was a late-minute addition. I put Cody Rhodes in there instead. I thought having the young blood, the quick worker, was a lot better. You already have Kane in there. You don't need another big guy. You got Wade Barrett, who is the legitimate bare-knuckle brawler. And you've got Drew McIntyre, who else was kind of up and coming at the point. So why the hell not throw some Cody Rhodes in there?
Yeah, I don't hate that. I was kind of hoping maybe you'd put Diesel in there because he was in the Rumble the month previous, but I didn't. I figured that wasn't going to happen. No, this is good. I like the idea of having him in there, and it's intermixing some guys that are really over: Edge, Rey Mysterio, Kane, and then you have the other mix of the guys that are just on coming up, like a Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, Wade Barrett. So it makes sense. You sort of give the rub to the younger guys by having them in that mix. So I do like that idea. That's good.
So we're going to have Rey Mysterio and Wade Barrett started off. Because this era of Wade Barrett was weird. It was after Nexus. We were in the core. And I don't think the core gets enough love. I think Big Zeke was a mediocre worker at best. But Slater, Gabriel, and Barrett could all work. So I kind of gave Wade Barrett the sort of Shayna Baszler spot from last year. And he's just going to run through people. Within the first minute, he takes out Mysterio. He's out. So Barrett gets like 4 minutes of just chilling out here before Cody comes in. Cody again, couple of minutes, gone. Wade is looking strong. You get Kane enter. He knocks out Kane in 30 seconds. After Kane, we get Edge, and that's when the match actually really starts to go. So Edge and Barrett go back and forth, with Drew McIntyre entering last. Drew McIntyre is the next one eliminated. You get down to Edge and Barrett, and it's because Barrett had eliminated McIntyre. He was getting all cocky with him. Edge is the ultimate opportunist, sneaks in a spear, execution, 1, 2, 3, Edge is still your champ.
No, I like that. And you spend the better part of the match telling that story, getting over Barrett, who I think, again, here's another example of a guy who, had he not been in the climate that he was in at the time with all these big time stars like the Cenas and the Ortons, I think probably would have been more over than he ended up being. They did push him to the moon with the Nexus stuff, and he was running roughshod with the Nexus over WWE. So I feel like keeping that momentum going makes sense, even if he had dropped off a little bit in the last little while, to have him reignited. I mean, it wasn't far enough removed from his stuff with the Nexus that it'd be, believable that he was still a big time threat. So I do like that. I like that you've booked Wade Barrett strong, and then you can go into have him have a match at Mania with somebody and keep the momentum going, so that way whenever Mania is over and we are looking for new challengers, Barrett could be in line there and make sense for whomever he chooses to challenge because he has the credibility. So I do like that. That's a good booking.
Yeah, and I believe that year's WrestleMania 27, it was that terrible 8-man tag with the core against, what was it, Kofi, Santino, Kozlov, and Big Show or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Just a complete throwaway 3-minute 8-man tag.
Yeah.
Now we don't have to have that. You can have Barrett go one-on-one with somebody, or even do a core match, but have the core look super strong and not doing the job to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, you could even just do a singles match with, Barrett and Big Show at Mania and have Barrett go over on Big Show in dominant fashion. I mean, Big Show is, a big star from very, very over time in the company. Obviously, the Attitude Era Monday Night Wars, he was a big star. So having him go over somebody like a Big Show would provide credibility as well. So, no, I think you've done a good job here. And surprisingly enough, I know I was kind of going into this rebooking today thinking that you were going to pull some swerves on me, bro. But no, I'm actually I'm happy with the way you've booked this whole card. I think you've done it justice for sure. And I like the substitutions as well.
And sometimes it's just the subtle little changes that make it that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm glad that you took certain guys out and put other guys in. And I like the Crime Time win as well. I think that's cool. So yeah, even the Jerry Lawler booking, I think, was really good. I agree with why you did it, and I think it was well done. So, yeah, man, you got my thumbs up on this week. I think you did a really great job.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. I tried. I definitely tried and squeezed it into my busy life, got the rebooking done, and now we have a new episode. Thank God.
Yes, we did. But again, it's fun for us to do these sometimes on afternoons. Kind of see the light of day when we're doing the booking, and I definitely enjoyed this particular one, and it was a very funny time in the company. I mean, it was almost a transitional time here. I mean, you had some people that were sort of established in the Ruthless Aggression era that were now on top, and some that were there for the Ruthless Aggression area that were no longer all that important on the card. They had moved down for whatever reason. So we had an influx of new stars. To your point, you had, the core. You had John Morrison in there. You had the Miz as champion. So there was a lot of Daniel Bryan, of course. So you had a lot of people that were coming in, and it was almost, I think it was a year of transition for the WWE.
Yeah, the only thing that I toyed with doing on this one was putting a women's match on there, but 2011 wasn't exactly a marquee year for women's wrestling. The only thing I thought of was either Lay Cool or Mickie James, really. But we had seen that feud so many times, I didn't want to throw it on pay-per-view again.
I don't even know if Mickie James was still in the company at this point. I think she might have been gone.
Then we had like Lay Cool or what? Maybe a Kelly or something like that. Because Beth wasn't really a thing yet. This was just before Beth had really broken in, right? Or was this after?
No, Beth was there. She was already doing stuff with Santino back in 2008 and 2009. So she was there. But to your point, I mean, I think just in the construct of the way they were booking the women's division at this time, it wouldn't have been, I mean, this is no knock on the women's division whatsoever, but I don't think that there would have been a lot of time allocated to a match. Unfortunately, I mean, there are definitely people on the roster that could go. I mean, you would have had a really great match with Beth and Michelle McCool or something like that, or even a handicap, with Lay Cool versus Beth or something, and you could have gotten.
Yeah, I guess I could have thrown a Natty Neidhart on there or something too, but yeah, I was racking my brain at do I put a women's match on or not? And I was like, I don't see them getting the best showcase at this time, even with my rebooking, because time constraints and everything. So
yeah, and
I thought better to leave it off.
Yeah, exactly. And you almost have to kind of book, like we did last week with our episode for the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. You kind of have to book to the time frame. I mean, it doesn't make sense for either one of us to book way outside the box and then try to fit it into the continuity of whatever is going before it or after it. So you have to kind of book to the time frame to somewhat of a degree. And I think that, as I said, you could have gotten a really, really solid match, a women's match on this card, but it probably just wasn't, no pun intended, in the cards at this time, unfortunately. So I will say about the women, though, one quick little thing. I thought it was pretty impressive to see Trish doing those chick kicks and the Trish Bulldog and everything with those. Have you seen how high her heels were?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as impressed seeing Trish come back because she's never not been in shape. I feel like Trish Stratus, after she retired, came back so many times, it's almost like Terry Funk. Is she actually retired? Like, even a year and a half ago at SummerSlam, she had a match against Charlotte Flair. So she still keeps showing up and doing things. So I can't call her retired anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the idea was that was going to be her final because it was in Toronto and it was against Charlotte. But I definitely think that she could still have a couple of matches. I mean, she's clearly in great shape and she can clearly still go. So, I mean, I know there's been talk
but her
versus Sasha.
Her original retirement match was in Toronto too. So what is it? Every time there's a pay-per-view in Toronto, Trish has a retirement match now?
Could be. It could be. I mean, I personally I'd be fine with seeing her do a couple more matches. I don't know if it's going to happen. I suspect she probably still has one more in the tank, especially because she's already gone on record as to say that would be a dream match for her versus Sasha. So, a lot of times you're not going to say something if you can't deliver, right? So who knows? It might be in the cards. Maybe we'll see it this year at Mania. It's certainly possible.
No, I think we're seeing Sasha and Bianca at Mania.
I think so too, but I'm just saying it. I think it's certainly possible for us to still see Trish Stratus in the ring again. I don't necessarily think that the final curtain's been drawn on her in-ring career.
I think you're right, which is exactly what I'm saying. I can't call her retired right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think you can either. But with that being said, I mean, that was our interesting booking of the Elimination Chamber 2011. Tyrone, you want to quickly just run through the card for us and just give us your rebooks real quick for the sake of posterity?
Yeah, sure. I got Alberto Del Rio defeating Kofi Kingston for the Intercontinental title. Then we had the Raw Elimination Chamber match with John Cena defeating Daniel Bryan, Sheamus, John Morrison, Randy Orton, and CM Punk. Then we had the Triple Threat Tag Team match with Crime Time taking the titles. Then we had my surprise match of Christian and Dolph Ziggler going to a double countout. Then we had The Miz destroying Jerry the King Lawler for the title. And then we went into the SmackDown Elimination Chamber match with Edge defeating Wade Barrett, Cody Rhodes, Kane, Rey Mysterio, and Drew McIntyre.
Yes, indeed. And you did a very, very good job of it too. I was impressed by the booking. I enjoyed this week's changes. I thought you did a really good job. Everything holds up well. So I really can't criticize you too much this week, buddy. I know a lot of times we have differing points of view, and I'm sure you were confident that I'd be not too pleased with the Jerry Lawler stuff. But truthfully, I think you did a great job. So I'll give you 2 thumbs up on this one this week.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Let's stop praising right now because I have a show for you for next week.
Uh-huh. And what do you have?
Couple of weeks ago, you decided to be a dickhead and make me review Super Brawl 4. So I thought, since we've had a request for it, why not return the favor and you can do Super Brawl 3?
Oh, okay. Well, I will be full disclosure here. I have researched Super Brawl 3 a little bit because we had a request for it. And I'm not going to be too hard on the event because, again, we had a request for it. So I am definitely going to have a look and buckle up, maybe make a little extra high-octane coffee and have a look at this one and see where we go. I have sort of played around a little bit with it, but I am not overly familiar with the angles going into this particular event. So it's going to be a research-heavy show for me. But we did have a fan request done on our social media, so we are absolutely going to oblige that request. If you folks, anybody listening to this right now, has a request, we will definitely take it under advisement, and more than likely we will book it. We have a lot of fun doing these shows, but obviously with the fan interaction, it just makes it that much more interesting for us. And we'd love to book what you want to hear us book. So we'll enjoy watching that one. I will tell you as well, folks, that we just closed a poll on social media for an upcoming bonus episode. Now, with that bonus episode being a choice between the WWF Madison Square Garden show on 3/16/1997, the WWE Roadblock pay-per-view from Toronto in 2016, Saturday night's main event from March 18th of 2006, and the Saturday night's main event from March 7th, 1988. And drum roll, please. The winner of this poll by way of 43% is the WWE Roadblock 2016 network special that both you and I, Tyrone, were at together. So that'll be a fun little thing to go back in time and watch that, huh?
I'm really glad that one won, because the other ones I had no interest in rebooking the other ones whatsoever. So yeah, I'm down for Roadblock. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we did initially write it down as a rebook, but we'll see. I mean, Tyrone, do you want to do a rebook on this one, or do you want to do a watch along on this one?
To be honest with you, watch-alongs are too long for me these days, so probably a rebook.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. A rebook will be fun. So we're not 100% sure when we're going to drop that, folks. We're going to record it in the next little while. We'll have it dropped as a surprise episode at some point. Not going to give you a hard or fast time frame right now, but we definitely will record it at some point in the next little while and drop that as some fun bonus stuff for you. And as for myself, I'm going to be busy sequestering myself in front of the television with Super Bowl III in mind, with a rebooking and a lot of history, news, and notes going into that one. Tyrone, where can our fans reach us on social media?
You can find us on Twitter at good_enemies, Instagram at good_enemies, and on Facebook at the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast. Do not forget, hit like and subscribe to the Counted Out 7 YouTube channel, where you get this episode right into your inbox, right into your subscriptions, everything. It's just right there. Notifications are there for you whenever we drop a new episode. Like, subscribe, comment. We're still looking for what the hell was that tag team from WCW? Thunder and Lightning. We're still looking for them. We're still looking for Jungle Jim Steele. Any comments that you guys have on their whereabouts would be really, really appreciated.
Without question. We might have subbed them into the chamber match, or made it a fatal 4-way tag team match this week had we known where their whereabouts were. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to another edition of the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast. And thank you very much for your likes, your subscribes, and your listens. And for myself and Tyrone, you've been listening to the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast.
Bye.